comedian teachers can show you how to become funny? Are there any such people? I don't know. If there are, then maybe an AI could be engineered to do that. We'll work on that, Jerry.
Excellent. You have tripped into the OGM weekly call for October 2nd, 2025. Alex was wondering if AI might be able to coach him to be a funnier person because he's normally very analytic, and that got us going on some fun stuff. So we'll wait a little bit until more people show up before diving into our topics for the day. But how is everybody? Surviving the apocalypse? Good.
Can I explain something about the apocalypse? Because I believe it's
yeah. Of course. Is this a funny interjection or is this a serious interjection?
This is funny, actually, but only because it happened, not because I thought it up.
See? It's working already.
My wife sent me, we have some gold in a certain bank place or whatever. Anyway, so my wife sent me a text. Look at the value of gold. This gone up to whatever, you know. So I replied, I said, oh my God, we're about to have a war. That's why the gold price shot up. And she goes back, no, we're about to spend a lot. So I'm going to spend it. Analytical versus funny. You know, I went to
That's good though. See, that worked. And two different ways of seeing what happens when the price of your asset spikes.
Exactly.
Oh my God, the world is coming to the end. Oh my God, we need to spend this. I like it. Hi, Stacey. I'm just going around seeing just how people are feeling this morning. I see your dog is chewing on the pillow or something behind you. The pillow is wobbling.
Yes, and he's now wearing a diaper.
Oh no.
And I look like this, so put it all together.
Man, okay, so you just checked in really quick there, wasn't? Yeah, there we go. Cool. As I said in the invite sent late last night, today is a check-in call, but I'm also really interested in looking at OGM a bit, and I'm hoping more people join us on the call to do so because I'd love some a variety of opinions about what's up. But would love just feedback right now on what. Let's just jump in the middle of this thing, and what's working and not working about OGM calls and list and things like that.
Can you just repeat what you said in the letter because I didn't see it?
Yeah. So I basically said today's a check-in call given our normal rhythm. It's the first Thursday of the month, but also we're overdue for feedback on OGM itself. And I've been getting some emails from different people saying, hey, what about this? What about that? And I'd love to just open that up and talk about it as a group, as us. John.
Yeah, good morning. So I am aware of these Thursday morning calls. I'm aware that there are some other calls that occur, but I have no idea like when they are or where the map is that tells me like what those are, that type of thing. I'm aware of Plex now, and I'm part of the team that's stepping in and helping. I'm failing in my responsibility coming out of the gate, but I'm committed, and I'm becoming aware of what Plex is and the community that it serves. Beyond that, I have zero understanding of like the whatever CSC Mattermost, whether there are Slack channels, I know that there are these other forms of communication, but I think as my comment suggests, I have no kind of conception of what they are, how they interrelate. And so as a emerging Plex contributor that wants to serve the community by having what I post there be relevant to things, other things that are going on, I have this kind of low level anxiety that like I don't know what's going on. And so like am I really like well qualified or positioned or whatever to add value, like as a commentator on the community. Anyway, so that's my comment.
Oh, totally, John. So I can put you at ease because a lot of what you just described is sort of has gone away or is going away. You appear to be on the two things that are sort of in the standing in the middle of OGM, which is the OGM mailing list on the Google group, and I'm sure you're on that because I see that on that periodically, and
Yeah.
these Thursday calls. There used to be 3, 4 other standing calls a week. And I don't know, 6, 7 months ago, I stepped out of them because I realized that those calls were spinning me up and I was losing like half a day on each one, and I needed to refocus my time. And I don't know that any of those calls have survived. And Klaus, is our NeoBooks still meeting? I know that Eric Rangel had sort of led some of them, but I don't know that they're still up. Are they? Do you know that they're still going?
No, Jose was talking about starting a group, but then nothing happened that I'm aware of.
Okay, and the Friedrich's brain call hasn't reconstituted in any way. So there were a couple other calls, and there was a wiki page up, which I can share with you, which I should actually change now because those calls don't exist anymore. And then Pete has very kindly hosted the Mattermost server for us. Mattermost is the Slack open source alternative or competitor or something like that. And Pete very kindly was hosting a Mattermost instance for us and for several other communities that are kind of neighbors of ours. And the traffic has been really low on that. So he's deprecating that right about now. Pete, I don't know what your schedule is or if you want to talk about that, but we won't have that channel. And I'll add that he also had stood up a discourse channel, not Discord. It's sort of a pain in the social media business that these platforms are so similarly named and relatively different from each other. But Pete had also stood up a discourse forum, which we used for a while, and then that also tapered off. So that got archived a year and a half ago, some time back. But I don't know, Pete, if you want to talk about those.
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in a bit. I don't have to go over a lot of it, although I'm happy to answer questions. John, a good heuristic and kind of the way that I thought of Plex back in the day is you can just start talking about what you know and hope that people will correct you when you get it wrong or add when you've got it incomplete or something like that. So you don't have to feel super uh, defensive or self whatever about not knowing things, because if you just start talking, if the community is strong enough, you'll get plenty of people going, hey, that's not right, or did you know about this? I have to say, as Jay said, we used to have many more conversations going on, and we now have many fewer. It's more diffuse. I know of a signal group that calls itself an OGM signal group. I think most people don't know about it, and it's not meant to be a general, like everybody from OGM should be there. So Fellowship of the Link is another thing that is kind of hanging on. I haven't been to calls for a long time, and I don't think we've been successful at doing them every time, but they still go on a little bit. It was yesterday that I posted in that group, hey, by the way, Mattermost is going away. We should reconvene someplace. And I suggested Signal, Matrix, or Discord, and got 2 answers within 24 hours saying, yeah, Signal or Discord is fine. Massive Wiki is rehoming itself on Matrix. There's so maybe another way to say it is there are refugees in different places, and somebody like John could go around and kind of ask, hey, where are you hanging out? And then post that in something like the Plex or the list, and kind of help as we diffuse a little bit, to stay in touch a little bit better than we could otherwise. The the big replacements I think for Mattermost are Discord and Signal and Matrix. Each of them has their pluses and minuses, and none of them. We're in a weird place now where Mattermost is technically kind of the best that we could do, and we're not using it, so we're not going to use it. We don't get to use it because I'm going to shut it down. Every other thing is more, either more commercial or more distributed, less like more decentralized, smaller. And that's the way of the world right now. It's just the way it is.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Also, I should say that, John, the fact that you didn't know where to look or whatever, it means we were communicating badly. We, should have done more of that. We should have more of these looking at ourselves calls anyway. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. Rick,
Yeah,
please.
that
Go
may
ahead,
be
John.
true, Jerry, but like I also recognize from some of the conversations I've had with members here, like I'm really, really new. And it seems like most people that are in this group are kind of long term, like they've been around a long time. So there's kind of this institutional, things that seem obvious to most of the community because of the longevity of it. And so it may just be a thing that like newbies, are in the dark, but only because it's a longer term community than that, right? Like it's not really built for brand new people.
Sort of yes and no. And that last thing you said, I want to pick up. You're feeling kind of OG to me, John. So I don't know how newbie you are anymore.
Oh, okay.
The bloom is off the rose, so to speak. But I think not signposting well is what makes some communities unwelcoming or hard to get into. And you don't really want to have a community where it's clear there's an OG and they have their secrets and their secret handshakes and whatever else, and you're just
Yeah.
going to have to figure them out somehow. That's not the thing we want to do or have.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you're
and that's
you're
my
kind of gently
that's
pointing
my
these
main
things
reason
up.
for speaking up, right? It's just, yeah, because sometimes that new view is, oh, like to the people that have been around a while, it's a little bit like, oh, I didn't know it looked like that,
Exactly. And just to before you go to Rick, to point out what Pete was just describing with all the different platforms, we're at a moment where we should discuss, do we want to shift platforms, add a platform, do something like that? What might we want to do and what are the factors to blend into that kind of a decision? Rick.
Yeah, and maybe I could just share a perspective because I go between different groups, so I don't have the group that I go to. So I've studied how groups evolve over time, and I'll tell you a story that brings up to question: does this group want to grow or not? I think it's a critical question. If it doesn't want to grow, that's fine. It's for the group to decide that for now. But to John's point, I think, and I've witnessed this in other groups, that some groups don't do a very good of onboarding people. I mean, doing a deliberate onboarding, engaging, having a buddy system or something like that, so that people, no matter how welcome you are, there is still an inside-out dynamic, even though if you don't see it, if you're on the inside. So I think John's point is very valid. So I think the critical question, do you want to grow or not? If you don't, that's fine. If you do, then obviously the fact that this community has gone through its biorhythms of being more expansive and is now contracting, it has to decide, does it want to do that? And I'll just tell you a brief story that highlights some of this. I belong to EXO. I go to the mastermind groups, and they had an AI group that was affiliated. They had a fallout. It was interesting. I couldn't understand it. Why would they have a fallout? I mean, and so the AI group went off in a different direction. Then it morphed and changed with new leadership. It's now expanding. And it's now doing something I've seen other groups, and this group's experienced it too, where you get a spin-off group. So there's a spin-off group from this AI group that's interested in, they started off focusing on human flourishing. And I said, we have to have human and planetary flourishing. Are you going to expand it to that? And if you are, then I'd be interested in that group. So it's a fledgling group. And to me, this speaks to sort of like the mycelium nature of these things. What are the inhibitory and pro-growth strategies? And until you answer the question, do you want to grow or not, then it's difficult to make any concrete suggestions about expansion. I'll give you one reference, Jerry, which a group that I used to belong to but left because I didn't find it. It was a men's group called Metal, which I know you've presented at. But what's interesting about that group is they're very effective at having, at the time, they must have had 50 different groups, clustering infinities, crypto, this, and this. And I left the group because it was apolitical and I had other issues with it. But it was an incredible experience to see how a group that purports to be apolitical when it wasn't, which was the part of the irony, would have these different, groups, breath groups, whatever. So the critical question, do you want to grow or not? Or are you quite happy as it is? And maybe once a week on Thursday is all that's needed. So I'm not vested in any way. It's, I pop in because I get a few new ideas, go away and think about it. So, I think you have to decide, Jerry, whether you want to create something that's more self-organizing, self-generating, self-governing, if you want to have spin-off affinity groups, because people have this niche that they want to follow for a period of time and whatever. So I think that's the question the group needs to ask itself.
Thanks, Rick. That's really useful. And yes, the metal thing, I spoke at once. I was invited to speak, and I came in, and the group's dynamic wasn't something I particularly liked. I think they meet Saturday mornings or something like that for several hours, and they've got kind of a programmatic approach to it. But you reminded me of a really good one of Malcolm Gladwell's better articles is called The Cellular Church. And I just put a link to it in the chat. Somebody tell me if that is an open link or not. I think it is. And he talks about the Saddleback Church where Rick Warren was a pastor, and how giant the church became because they had the quilting group, the downhill bikers. They basically created little cells where everybody had a common interest, and they once a year they would get together in a local football stadium because there were so many of them they couldn't all fit in the church they had. So it's really pretty interesting. And I think the question about do we want to grow is a really nice question for the group. I don't think it's for me. And funny you mentioned onboarding and all that. Early in OGM 2020, 2021, we had a bunch of meetings and conversations about onboarding, who wants to be involved in onboarding, also outreach, who wants to bridge to other communities. And those didn't turn into any resources that we wound up finishing or whatever. The efforts kind of petered out. And it's kind of a characteristic of OGM, and I'm going to overgeneralize here, that we have lovely salons, but we don't get a lot of things done. There are other communities that create bodies of work, whether it's wiki pages or pattern languages or code or something else. We've not, and we have kind of a hardy crew here, which is like well represented right now, right here. And maybe this is a salon for us, and maybe we want to keep it going. Maybe we don't. I'm open to all suggestions. I'm not focused on growth. I find it's very funny. I find if these calls went larger than one screen worth of Zoom gallery, I would probably have a harder time in them and enjoy them a little less, because I really like, so that takes us up to whatever size. Is it 64 now that you can sort of max out on a reasonable screen on Zoom? Maybe that's the size, I don't know. But I really like seeing everybody's faces and being able to see expressions. And if somebody's like leaning back in the corner or whatever else, that makes it very convivial to me. And then last thing, Rick, the group that split and all that, was that the Open Exo community? Is that the group you were talking about, or is that someone else?
No, it was the Exo community.
Oh, okay.
But they had an AI subgroup that independently just ran, and there was a fallout between the leadership between the two groups. Interestingly, the leadership of that AI out group moved on, and it's now got new leadership, and it's getting a second win. But coming to your point of what you just said, I agree with you. You want to have intimacy groups, but if you design it in such a way that you have subgroups or you break into groups or whatever, you can. But it's a question of whether you want to do that or whether the interest.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the issue is, can people follow their passion and connect with people who feel passionate about the areas that they're interested in? So you're creating affinity groups, and that to be honest, I don't think the design of this group as it is now is designed for that purpose. And that's fine for what it's doing now, but if it wanted to be able to, you know, have these mycelium spin-offs and whatever, then you would have to, I think, have a different design. But that's up to you guys. I mean,
Actually, Rick, the groups that in answering John's question about what about those other meetings, when I said that there were other groups that I stepped out of, those were in fact little mycelial rhizomal spin-outs, exactly like you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And my question is, do you want to rekindle it, or
right.
maybe the wrong metaphor, but do you want to re-nurture it?
Well, kindling is fine. Good. We've got a bunch of people who'd love to chip in. John, back to you.
Yeah, just one sentence. A companion, I think, to Rick's question is a super important question. Do you want to grow? But I think the companion question is, in what ways? You know, in what manner, in what dimensions, what directions? Because as you said, growth itself is a little bit of a ridiculous goal if it doesn't have a, you know, something more of a guiding intention to it, I think.
Yep. Thanks, John. Alex?
My contribution to this is as follows. I feel very different from you guys, okay? But that's why I like being here. I don't believe I'm on the same political affiliation as you guys. I don't believe I'm on any topic. Literally, I listen to you guys and I think, I don't agree with that. But that's what I value. Because otherwise, I'm not going to listen to anybody that doesn't agree with me. And sadly, I haven't found a group of people who totally agree with me. If they did, wouldn't exist. But the point is that I value the diversity of views. Now, I do get frustrated sometimes. I think, oh, we should expand more on this or that. But as you say, we can form subgroups. We can do all sorts of things beyond that. But there's a limit how many groups you can join any one week. And I find this the most all-encompassing kind of divergent views kind of group.
Thanks very much. That's super interesting. Maybe you need to start your own movement. Maybe you're unique in your cluster of perspectives, and a bunch of people would show up for you.
Yes, they would, but then there'd be my people, my ideas. Sorry, not my ideas, but my sort of, you know, you form your own kind of thinking, whatever.
Right.
That's what I'm fighting against. That's what I'm not right in everything, you know.
Love that. Thanks, Alex. Pete.
I kind of suggested to John a heuristic for finding out more. You know, publish what you know and see who complains or adds. Thinking about it, I also wanted to share another one for individuals more than somebody publishing. I feel like there are still OGM adjacent groups that continue to form. It's still going on. And the way I know about some of those is because I'm in touch with the person starting that group. So another heuristic is to ask the people that you find interesting, hey, where are you hanging out? Are you doing some stuff about, you know, XYZ topic? Do you know somebody who is? And within the OGM community, there's a bunch of people who are continually doing things or willing to do things with you. If you know, if you said, hey, I need to, you know, I'm interested in working on this topic. Could we join up and do something together? Could we start some calls? That's all of that is totally within the bounds of kind of what OGM has been doing and is continuing to do even now. You know, there's a couple subgroups that I've joined in the past month, you know. They're not for everybody, but they're, you know, it's happening. I'm gonna find a link on the OGM wiki about, you know, how to start a group or something like that. There's a page on that, and I'll put that in the chat.
Thanks, Pete. Stacy, please. You're muted. Yep.
Okay. Let's see if I can describe this properly. Towards the idea of growth. I'm thinking of the inner growth. And I'm thinking that at this point, with the people I know at OGM, I really do feel like I'm 1 degree of separation away from anybody I'm ever going to need to know or want to know. That's really how and my personal life too, just in general. I look at every one of us as a page on my own page. The most valuable thing that's happened in this group for me, Pete, it's your archive. That archive was very valuable, and I think it's important to this conversation. When I went into that archive, I was able to find something that I wrote that's a part of my page. I was able to bring it to somebody who's in a totally different community, but is connected to people in this community. I see somebody right here that he's connected to. I've spoken to him in other places. We're all connected in so many different places. But in this case, I'm the page that I carried to make those connections. I'm wondering if there's a way that when we have a call, it could be archived in that same way so that we could add those pieces to our pages. Because to me, it's the members that are important. And it's the members that go to the different places and make up those different groups. And what else did I want to add? I think I'll stop for now, but I just want to say, because there's so many different stories and every piece of information is part of a story, but Jerry might need more pieces of that story. And maybe I don't want to give Klaus as many of those pieces because it'll confuse things. What I've been doing, because I want people like Sean to see the whole story so that when he's building, he'll know what my needs are. I've just been saying everything all the time, and it's been really hard for me to do that. So I'll put things on the OGM mailing list. I don't know who's reading it. I am pretty sure that anybody in this call will kind of see it. And if they don't, I know they're going to hear it from me personally. So I've kind of, I'm working my odds. Good chance they're going to get that information. Whoever else sees it, I don't know. I don't care. As far as the Plex goes, I have no clue who reads it. Do we know? I mean, are you like measuring who actually reads it? Because if I have a question, I'll go first to the OGM mailing list, and then maybe I'll put it in the Plex, because honestly, I have no idea who the audience is. OGM mailing lists have a little bit of an idea, and it's worth it. And again, I think there's something to, somebody mentioned earlier about many different interests. I think it's kind of good that there's a place where it starts, where it's not so diffuse and diverse, because not all the pages need to go into all of the books. Okay, now I'm done. Over.
Stacy, thank you. Pete, do you want to address the little bit that went to you?
Stacy had an interesting question about who reads the Plex.
Yeah.
I know a little bit, and I actually kind of purposely don't try to analyze that or count reads or anything like that, because I think it's, I don't know. I like that people can read in private, oddly enough. I don't know. So there's a missing function there where it would be nice to have a better idea of who's in the audience, and if the audience should be expanded, could be expanded, something like that. I don't know. I'm not super interested in that kind of functionality.
Can I just say
Thanks,
something?
Pete. Please go
Can
ahead,
I just
Stacy.
jump in? It's not about to like an audience so that I could sell them something. It's like, who am I telling it to? I'm not
Right.
gonna come to this group and say, listen, there's a women's poetry circle tomorrow. This isn't the group I'm going to announce it to. So it's just about knowing where to bring the message.
Yeah, I completely understand. And I've, for better or for worse, by the way, I'm not publishing Plex anymore. Kevin is.
Right.
he's going to make his own decisions. His idea, his conception, as far as I understand, is actually to be mostly about OGM, for whatever reason. That, you know, and maybe this is a good place to interject. A thing that I always wanted with the Plex, and I felt like I was marginally successful, and then mostly I felt like I failed, was kind of exactly something that we're talking about here. Who's doing what where? How can I find out who's doing more? Or, you know, when I know a little bit, can I find out more about something? It turned out to be devilishly difficult, I found, to get that kind of information from people, and to get that kind of information from people. And it's not because people are closed-lipped. It's because if you ask me, hey, Pete, where do you hang out? It's like, I don't know. Today I'm hanging out with, I was going to hang out with Jesse today. You know, does that matter to you? Do you care? Do you like, is that and I won't tell you, you know, the 3 or 4 other things that are coming up this month that aren't currently in my head, right? It's really difficult. Another good example of somebody who's doing a lot of amazingly cool stuff, and, you know, doesn't have the time to talk about it, Vincent Arena. He's doing a massively amazing project, and, you know, he's always thoughtful and helpful when you ask him a question, but he doesn't have a lot of time to like sit around and brainstorm with folks, you know, hey, this is the kind of thing that's going on. You should know this, you should know that. We're missing not OGM, the global we, everybody is missing a matchmaking function, a way of finding out, you know, from your friends and your friends of friends and your friends of friends of friends, what are the things that you all know about that I would find interesting, right? We haven't cracked that nut. It's a really difficult thing to know who's saying what. So to come back to your kind of question and your thought there, Stacy, my heuristic for the Plex was like, I'm going to publish whatever I want to in the Plex. I didn't really know. I didn't have a good understanding of what to publish, who found Charles's little videos interesting, or who found them, you know, distracting, who cared about this interview or that interview. I don't know. I didn't look at readership. And I didn't really care, because I think it's a little bit hard to describe, but I know you're not interested in like, oh, I need more advertising views and I want to be able to resell, package and resell eyeballs. I know you're not talking about that, but it's kind of, I felt like it's kind of a slippery slope. And I don't know. A thing in Plex, I felt this concern or thinking or something like that. I wanted to give people agency and let them permit me to do things, rather than saying, well, I'm going to do this because you've joined this collective, right? I'm going to count you. I'm going to, you know, understand whether or not I should post something about knitting or whatever, right? I think it's, I think too often we assume that people can be collected into, you know, into categories, even in benign categories, benignly collected, when I don't feel that way. You know, I think, and so then we end up in this weird conundrum, right? I could have helped Plex a lot more probably if I knew what Plex was interested in. And if I said, hey, here's an edge where we're almost interested in this as a group, but we're not talking about it. Let me push this edge a little bit. Let me start doing that, right? And see who catches on, who enjoys that. That would make it more of a collective brain, more of a collective thinking process, right? I didn't have, and I didn't want to create the opt-in for that, because opt-ins are kind of a pain. So it's weird. It's a weird problem of like, how do we know, how do we find out about people? How do we ask people if it's okay to find out about them? All that kind of stuff. It's hard.
There's a bunch of stuff I want to put into the conversation that's kind of OGM history, but first you go, Stacy.
Yeah, real quick, could we have had like a like or a comment function? Because to me, that would have been the perfect platform right there.
Yes, yes. There should have been likes and comments. There should have been individual article addressing. All of that stuff is work. And even something like likes, we got trained by Facebook and Amazon where they have really good rating systems. Facebook, well, actually both of those are good and bad, right? They're evil in a way. But they have enough velocity and throughput to be able to do statistically interesting and useful stuff, right? Something like Plex is so small that adding a function that Amazon has, like reviews, or something that Facebook has, like likes or whatever they do nowadays, it's nearly meaningless. One like here, one like there is not enough for me to have done all the work to make sure that the like infrastructure is there, right? Another weird problem in small group dynamics. You don't get the same even and maybe a way to illustrate this, and sorry to go on kind of on a detail here, but it's another important illustration of a problem. If I go to Substack, oh my gosh, Substack has got amazing throughput of like people reading stuff, and they're pushing viewers all over the place. And when somebody posts an amazing article, I want to go and say, is this article more amazing than other articles? What are other articles that are amazing like this one, right? I see one or two likes, and it's interesting and almost, it's not that useful. It's Medium is finally kind of getting to the point with their clap thing that it's kind of, I can kind of tell what's interesting and kind of not, but not in the way that God forbid X is, on X you can kind of tell what's going on from the traffic and volumes. And another aside, sorry to get even more technical, the big platforms like Twitter or X or Instagram or something like that, you start to see weird dynamics of the likes, like just because there's a lot of likes doesn't mean it's actually popular. It means that a bunch of bots have decided to boost that one, right? And so you get these weird non-social dynamics that go on that don't mean what they are meant to mean. So anyway, social software is really hard. Social dynamics is really hard. Getting us more signal and less noise is really hard. Really, really, really hard.
This is the perfect segue for me to do a little bit of history and talk about context. I love the conversation we're having, and I think we should go deeper into what tools would we like to use? What affordances do we really want to value over others, et cetera, et cetera? And that's right next to the conversation about do we want to grow, whatever else. But let me go back. First thing I want to say is we should do the same kind of composting indexing with the OGM wiki, Pete says in the chat. And I'm like, because when Pete put up the Mattermost server, I just automatically started pouring all the files. I basically take I download the video from Zoom. I upload it to YouTube. I take that link, I put it in my brain. I put it in the Mattermost, and then I attach to that Mattermost entry the chat, the transcript, and the AI summary. And I've been doing that rhythmically, methodically not since June 2020, which was our first call, but since the Mattermost server came out and all that. And that's where all the files are. And Mattermost is a terrible place to do that. Mattermost is not a database. It doesn't make it easy to fetch those things out. It doesn't do anything like that. I've been an avid user of Massive Wiki since Pete came out with Massive Wiki. I'm writing like a fiend in Obsidian in the OGM Wiki. It has not occurred to me once to go into the folder and to create basically the list of all the calls in OGM Wiki, which may or may not be the right kind of structure to put it in. I'm not exactly sure that the wiki as it stands is a great database for looking things up or doing analyses or whatever else on it. That's an interesting side conversation. I just want to say it hadn't occurred to me to go do it there. And at this point, because Mattermost is being deprecated, I just created a Google Drive where I'm putting all the files, and that's not very useful, and nobody knows it exists. So I'm up for some brainstorming about, hey, every time I download these files, where should I put them and what should I do? Where it's much more useful. And I think OGM Wiki is a nice place to do it, because another thing I wrote down is wikis versus newsletters. Pete and I are both big fans of wikis. Pete used to actually, he co-founded and was in a wiki company for years called Social Text. He and I and many others thought many years ago that we would all be collaborating through wikis, and that there would be some semi-structured wikis. There's one called Wagon that came and went that was about a slightly more structured data. There were a bunch of kind of variants, but we thought we would be collaborating to co-write a series of connected nodes of text and other stuff that existed out in a rhizomal mycelial network of nodes. And I love this vision. Massive Wiki isn't quite a wiki yet, and may not. I don't know that it's on Pete's roadmap anymore to turn it into a full-fledged wiki, because you can't you can't edit the page that you're looking at, which is, I think, a really important feature for wikis to have. So we don't have wiki-like conversation yet in, ironically, OGM Wiki, but the topography of a wiki is, or a mailing list and a newsletter, are all different. And Stacy, what I mean by topography is, when you have a newsletter, it's broadcast to a bunch of people who sign up, and the owner of the list might be able to see the list of people who've signed up, but it's not a public resource. On the OGM list, you can go, you may not have done this yet, but you can go to Google Groups and you can see all the members of the OGM list. You can see when you put any, and when you drop any email to Open Global Mind at Google Groups, you can see who it went to. You cannot tell if any of them forwarded it to a friend or anything like that. You can't tell the second order reach, but the first order reach is right there for you to see, and it's easy, right? And then on a wiki, you can kind of see who made changes. You can't usually see who read the page. It doesn't track visitors who are reading, unless you have a larger site like Wikipedia, but it's a community of people who are co-editing, and it's a very different feeling around the shared asset online. And those things are distinct and culturally different and interesting in ways that we should talk about at greater length. Now for a little bit of history. Way early in OGM, Vincent Arena showed up, and one of the questions was, hey, who's doing what with whom? And that turned out to be a big question that was big enough that Vincent came straight out of college, where he had done some of this for his college, and he started a project to create a list of groups and members of groups and all of that, which he's still doing. And I haven't seen Vincent. He hasn't been in OGM for quite a while. He's apparently quite busy. We also had a little period where we were, and I think Pete sort of gave us the metaphor of, hey, since there are lots of little overlapping raindroppy organizations swimming in the big flotilla, there was also a side project called Flotilla for a while that Pete was running. What is the view from the mast of any one organization? Like if I were to go to the top of the OGM mast and look out, there are some orgs that are closer to us and others that are sort of out on the horizon that we've heard of, but there's some who have regular overlapping members because there are members of those communities who are regulars here, right? And so this view from the mast thing was really interesting. And then later I was looking for, how do I get a multi-plane camera view? And now, sorry, I'm going to explain a different thing. Disney invented the multi-plane camera to make cartoons. They basically created a frame where you could put cells, CELS, which are individual frames of animations. You would put cells in each of these layers, and the background would be like the landscape. And then here would be a couple trees, and here would be a Donald Duck. And you could move them at different rates of speed to give the illusion of depth and speed in a comic pretty easily. You would then replace one of them, but just shift the other ones, etc. What I was looking for was this view from the mast. Could it be one layer in a multiplane camera? Another view is the people. Another view is the projects that each of these things are going into. And then between the different layers, you could see, oh, Stacy is a member of OGM and she's part of this group doing a NeoBooks project or not, or whatever else. And you could kind of go up and down and see and collect, but you could turn this multiplane thing around and you could pull any one of them out and look at them in 2D, because just the view from the mast is its own interesting story, or just the overlapping projects is an interesting story, but then you could see the relationships between them. And that was more code than any of us was interested in or trying to create or anything like that. So that's the multiplane camera view thing that I put in the chat. We're sort of at this interesting moment where, ironically, when somebody says, hey, I've got a new community, what tool should I use? There's no good answer. Like if you ask Pete and me and other people who have a lot of experience in this field, we'll be like, oh God, not this question again. That's under our breath. And then we're like, well, you could try Discord, or you could try a Google group, or you could try this, or you could try that. And they all have their pluses and minuses. And the ones that have eaten the space, Facebook, LinkedIn, and others, Facebook has as its business model addicting you, so not that cool. LinkedIn much less so, but is very businessy, very whatever. I'm trying to do a little something with some private LinkedIn groups, but they don't have a lot of life, right? So the question still is, where the hell do we go? And I'm a little angry at the software world for not having fixed this and solved it at this point. I think that we know enough about all these things to figure out what to do, right? But we haven't sort of figured that out, and it would be nice if I'd love to hear people's opinions, whatever else. But that's just a little bit of background history, a bunch of different things we tried, none of which frankly stuck. And a few people like Vincent went off and were entrepreneurial and built up the thing that they were working on and went off. There were other communities. I'm trying to remember. Brad DeGraff has one, but another, Ben Roberts has a community where he's got a Kumu map of all the people in overlapping communities. That's really quite interesting. I'll find the link and post it in the chat when I'm done monologuing here. But some of the flotilla of neighboring communities have managed to get things done and share them out into the world, and they're really quite interesting resources. And with that, let's do a few seconds of silence, and then I'll go to you, Klaus. Thanks for your patience. Thanks, everybody. Klaus.
Yeah, I was saying we used to have a calendar. I was recently looking for it, and it seems to either have disappeared or I couldn't find it. But there used to be a calendar where groups would advertise themselves, and there would be open or closed groups. There would be some groups you can just drop in. There would be other groups, please check in if this is the right thing for you. But it really made it super easy to share, what's happening. And one reason why I was thinking about it is because I've been this summer wanting to see what's going on in my own community. And when you go to your meetup schedule, I mean the meetup app, every group here is advertising itself, and they also let you know if this is open or drop in or contact me and so on. And it's super incredible about how many groups are meeting, even in a small town like Bend. I mean, any topic you can think of, if you want to go to Zen meditation or an AI group or you name it, climate change issues, electrification, the national organization like Citizen Climate Lobby and the Sierra Club. I mean, they all have local representations. So there is just so much happening. It makes it really easy and interesting. So why don't we look at regrouping this schedule, right? And if someone wants to form a group, you can just make yourself known on that schedule, put a little background on it, and off you go.
I'd be very happy to post about us on other group schedules or calendars so that more people can find us. That sounds awesome. I haven't looked around, so I don't know which calendars to look at. And anybody who wants to do that, please do that on our behalf as well. Brief side note, I meant in my long rant to do something unrelated, which was to point out how spectacular Pete's recent project about social cyclic theories is. Just go browse around the wiki. It's an astonishing resource of, you've heard of Kondratiev waves and the Great Turning and all that. This is a beautifully organized, very deep compendium of that stuff. Totally worth looking at. Now we return to our regular program, which is already in progress. Alex.
But if I may, Tom, the one that you just posted, actually, I found this one, but there, for example, it hasn't been updated. You know, new books on Mondays, we used to.
That's the page. Earlier, when I was saying that we had sort of deprecated the different pop-out calls, and I needed to update the web, that's the page I need to fix.
But there was an actual schedule, like a next.
I remember that too, and I don't know where. I don't have it.
I think that's mine,
Pete.
the old Plex
Of course,
calendar.
Pete would find it.
There we go.
Well,
Good.
and this is something that I made. It's a lot of work to do this.
Yeah.
And the community didn't support it well enough.
Alex.
Okay, taking on Pete's comment just then, I'm going to go the other way. So I agree with you, Jerry, about, okay, just my personal experience. I have an issue reading long blocks of text. So I want everything in little bits, in titles, headings, summarizations, whatever. So obviously, if you go to Discord, it is like a impossibility for me to follow anything. Literally, it's just, I've got to think. It's like having a long chains of emails and having to look back to see what someone said. Again, for me, it's impossible. So Discord is out. Similarly, all the other kind of IT-centric, computer-centric, techie people-centric things are out. Email, as just said, OGM, even the email is a challenge for me. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, I would love to create our own one, or create a product about this, caters with all these issues we just mentioned. But based on what you said, Jerry, is I don't understand why nobody's done it yet. I don't know if you remember a tool that was out there for a short while until Google, as it does so often, canned it. Was it called Wave or something?
Yep, Wave. Wave was great.
So
was Google Plus, by the way.
I came.
Wave and Google Plus were two gigantic projects that Google launched and then deprecated really quickly. They were both super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understood Wave. I liked Wave. But obviously I couldn't find anybody else that on my wavelength. So, but that was the kind of thing. So if anybody is interested in working on this with me or whatever, I'm happy to work with people on this. But I just think there must be a product out there that does it. It's not beyond the imagination. I don't understand why there isn't one.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Kalia, thanks for being there. And I'd love it if you also gave us a little taste of what Sharif's meditation session was like, if you're willing to do that.
How about I rain check on Sharif's meditation, because I'm working on getting a one-page website up for it, and when it is ready, I will invite you all.
That sounds great.
So I think that I'm raised my hand because I have to go at the top of the hour, and I said I linked to a couple things in chat. I think that I don't know what we means anymore. People are approaching the problem that we have incorrectly. I don't believe we live in a social graph that is a product of our tool and mental model and the social reality of archetypical social reality of young masculine energy that runs around and says, look at me, connect to me, I'm really important. It's fine. It's a noble way to be in the world. It's just not the only way. And the anchor of and that energy built the social web, because that's who was given money to build it. If you had given money to women who are oriented around groups and communities, we would have built a vastly different social web and social tooling. And I think we have to go back and like go, wait, what did we just build? We did not build infrastructure for groups and communities to be coherent, to govern themselves, to take action together in the world. In part because I believe they don't want us to have this tooling. I mean, when you why after this long isn't it resource? But I'm working with Grace Rachmani on articulating group credentialing and formation. Another reason the software world is broken is you can form a group, but you can't port a group and you can't move it between places. Until we have that, we're locked into our tooling. So we need infrastructure that's separate from the tooling about group belonging and membership. This is, the identity tech I've worked on for 20 years is finally here, and we could finally do that if we built it. We need to use the identity tech for things other than government issued ID, which is getting all the money and attention and resourcing. It's fine. I'm neutral on it. They're open protocols. Anybody can build anything, but we have to build group tooling for our own groups so we have identity outside of status systems. And we also need group accountability and group dispute resolution. And Grace also has thought a lot about how to do this potentially at scale in creative ways. So I just would invite considering what I said and sort of thinking about it slightly differently than, the bird's eye view of all the people. This is instrumentalist thinking. There's chapter 15 and 16 of Surveillance Capitalism are about this and about Sandy Pentland's lab and specifically. And people are, I could go on, but I've said enough. I have to go. I'm sorry, but it's about the groups and tooling for groups. And I'll just finish and say, we need to also think about this community infrastructure as digital public infrastructure, not just statist infrastructure as digital public infrastructure.
Kalia, thank you. I'm sorry you have to bounce in a minute or two. That's a really good reorienting for us. I was thinking that VCs, I wrote, VCs are happy to fund addiction, but they're not going to fund community or civic life. But you're also, I think you're also saying, I'm gonna exaggerate a little bit what you said, but boys will create boy tools and women will actually create social tools that care about structure, reconciliation, relationships, all that kind of stuff. And we have not created any path to the sea for that kind of software. And we're not backing it, we're not funding it, we're not anything yet. And there might be a really interesting remedy there. Grace was a regular in OGM for a while, and kind of we chased her off, or she dropped out, or she got really busy with with
You
this.
want to know why she doesn't come? And
Tell me.
Because all you do is talk. That's what she said. It's just a talk fest, and also your demographics. Although, every time I come, I change the demographics.
That's
but
true.
How does this group go beyond, like, if we are not we, if one is serious about making a difference in the world, how is that difference actually manifest? Like, I'm coming because it's like, at one point I came more regularly. It's sort of good to connect, and I like you all, but it's still like, it's more like intellectually like massaging, not like doing. It's fun.
Well, I was going to say I agree, but I sort of agree. It feels like OGM has become the tidal pool at the intersection of multiple people's activities. And Klaus is out trying to change the world toward regenerative agriculture, clean soil, healthy soil, clean water, etc. And I love hearing what he does in those spheres, and he is really, really active. Doug is trying to pacify the world in other ways, and he is very active in other spheres. And I love when he checks in. And Sean is busy like coding till his like eyes fall out, like late at night, trying to build a platform to do all this kind of stuff. And I hope is hearing what you're saying, because I think what you just said is like really interesting for what Sean is trying to do, et cetera, et cetera. Scott has put together, and it's funny. I just look around my little gallery view, and everybody's busy doing stuff, but we don't succeed when we try to do stuff together much at all. And granted, but it feels to me like the sharing of those bits of activity from each of us is somehow worth it for us to show up here and go. Kalia, thank you. I know you have to bounce.
I mean, think that's why I'm coming. So it may also be like, you know, and it's okay. Not everybody has to be in every group.
But before you go,
That's true.
Kalia,
Yeah.
before you go, I'm doing things at two layers. One level is the MMM level, and what that is the merged mental model. What it is a distributed data store that it's semantic, it's structured, but it also has textual components. So in effect, it's structured so that it can hold both the hyper object of the great conversation, which is natural language being flung back and forth around the world. The hyper object of the great conversation is all of our discourse through history. It could hold that, and it can also hold the merged mental model, which is the superposition of our collected understandings. And the way and this is just a data layer, okay? So it's a distributed database that it's kind of like Bitcoin, but for ideas, okay? For those two aspects of the problem space, okay? And so one of the things that it has is a bunch of privilege levels and control circuits, so that groups can define themselves and
Great, then come and
discourse spaces.
collaborate with us and don't reinvent new things. Like, we have
So-
the infrastructure. I mean, that's what we talked about last time we talked. So hopefully
Exactly.
we'll figure it out.
So I embrace your use cases, and I have an offer that's a
Kalia
platform
has to
for
yeah.
all you say.
I would say pitch it into groups that Kalia might direct you toward. Good, and she's headed off to her call. Thanks, Sean. I think our topic for next Thursday is sort of like this. I think we pick up this conversation and keep going. I think we're in a good place, and I think we've passed the hour, but we've only now started to turn into some interesting issues that matter, that might actually be long-term how we shift or do something. I'm not feeling that articulate about it right now, but I feel like I'm seeing differently than I was at the top of the hour, at the start of the hour, which I really appreciate. Pete, please.
As always, there's about 4 things I want to reply to. I don't know if I'll hit all of them, and probably shouldn't anyway. One of the things I wanted to say, I said really hard, really hard a couple times, and also, didn't have the resources to do that. Community didn't support this, whatever, right? One of the bright lights, nowadays is AI assistance. So the Plex archive is actually an amazingly well put together thing. I didn't really do that. I had AI write code that did that. So when I say something like AI is really important here, I'm not meaning that we should cede things over to AI and say, hey, AI, can you help me? I'm lost and confused. But there is definitely a place for AI to follow the lead of a human who knows that they need to organize things. And an AI is great at grunt lifting code or massive reorganization of stuff that used to we used to wish for, and now we can just do it kind of, with a bot's help super fast. So actually I'm actually super energized knowing that we have tools that can make code super fast and agentic tools that can organize information very fast, and that people like the folks here can direct those tools. So I'm actually really excited about the future. Organizing and distributing communication and information amongst humans. It's going to be a lot easier than it has been. I wanted to pick up on what Kalia said about groups. Very smart, very thoughtful, and especially contrasting with the social graph. I'm going to hit return on a thing that I started to write in chat. I happen to have been in the bleachers watching some of this world start to happen, the social graph, supremacy of the social graph. Back in the day, back in the mid 90s, there was a company called 6 Degrees that was one of the early, you could think of it kind of as LinkedIn or something like that. There were a few others. Rise, there was a thing called Rise, RYZE, might still be around. That was one of the very earliest. 6 Degrees went out of business. The IP that got bought, the idea of a social graph got protectively acquired by Reid Hoffman, later of LinkedIn, and Mark Pincus, later of things like Zynga and Tribe. Reid and Mark wanted to make sure that it didn't fall into the wrong hands, which may have been the Friendster guy. But it was perceived to be the 6 Degrees patent, it's called, was perceived to be a key part of a key asset that then got developed into things like LinkedIn. So the supremacy of the social graph is a path-dependent outcome of kind of Silicon Valley latching on to the idea of social graph early on and deciding that that was going to be a moneymaker, and it was. But in some alternate history, to Kalia's point, it could have been a set of women that came up with the ideas and the architectures to help people hook together, and we might have ended up in a completely different place. I've personally met and chatted with Mark Pincus and Reid Hoffman. They are both amazing people, some of the best people I know in the world. So I don't mean to impugn their character or say anything bad about them. They're awesome people. But they did also get swept up in the supremacy of the social graph, which was a good thing for a while, and maybe now it's not such a good thing, to Clay's point. I think that's really smart of her to say. I think lastly, I hope it stung a little bit when Grace said, y'all just talk. So I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. I think that's okay. Jerry and I talked, Jerry and I had some talks over the years. What is OGM? One of the things OGM seems to be is this nexus of a place where people can come together and learn about other people, and then they go off and do things. And in a way, that's not a bad thing, and maybe that's a best thing. OGM as a star nursery, a place for stellar formation, is a wonderful kind of thing. I wish that, so if I had my druthers, if I could wish for something for OGM, I don't wish that we got more done. I don't even wish that we onboarded people better. I wish that more people passed by and some of them stuck. I wish that we could tell what this group is doing in multiplex everywhere. Each of us has probably got, 3, 4, 5, 10 projects that they know of, are interrelated with, that would be really interesting to some, but not all of the rest of us, right? This is kind of the problem that Vincent Flotilla, and especially Vincent, was chasing. Wouldn't it be great if there was a database where everybody knew everything about everything, and if it was magically relevant in a way that you could come and, I think of the world this way, or I think of the world that way, and I'm interested in these kinds of things. Can you tell me what other kinds of things there are? Catalyst does that, and it's still not enough. I've always thought that we needed human matchmakers around a power tool like Catalyst to help people make sense of things. I don't know if that's the right architecture. But if I had a wish, I'll say it again. If I had a wish, it's not that OGM was necessarily bigger or better at doing stuff. It's that we had better distribution of interesting information about what we're all doing, and what the people we know and can trust and we know they're thoughtful, what they're doing and how we might plug into that. So somehow that used to be, that's kind of the idea of the Plex, was kind of that, and it didn't work out. I think. I mean, it worked out a little bit, but not nearly as much as it should have. So I wish OGM would do more of that. I'm still brainstorming tools and ways to do more of that too.
Pete, thank you for all of that. And I just want to add, the things that happen for a short while and then go away aren't failures, they're progress. They're like, we tried something, we did something, and pieces of it will live on in other ways, and cool. And some things have a lifetime. And unfortunately, some projects, groups, and things keep going, even though they should have stopped. So I think stopping is an okay thing. But thank you for all the added context as well. And Scott, thanks for what you said in the chat. It's good. We're agreeing with you. Klaus, please.
Yeah, to echo a little bit what Pete was just saying. I mean, I would have not known anything about AI or what to do with AI if it wasn't for Pete to open the doors and get us into it. And then I spent some time with Pete trying to see how we could hook up with what he's working on. And what really happened, it started an evolution in how I was working with AI. I just got invited to a panel discussion for a conference hosted by Kansas State University on the integration of AI with agriculture, with food and agriculture. And that made me think about more deeply, right? What am I actually doing with this? And where I'm transitioning, and I find when I talk with potential clients, there is this confusion about, am I an AI software developer, or am I an industry expert who is using AI to do what he's doing, right? And so I have come now to this. I'm an industry expert. I have a very unique background, and of course, Doug helped us, to also with my daughter and I to think this through a little bit more. But I'm really articulating this now because I'm realizing that in order to land clients, I have to be very specific about, I know what I'm doing in this industry and in this business, and I'm using AI to do it better, kind of thing, And so I migrated us to OpenAI team, because I can still program this myself. I can still develop the agents and train them and have conversations with these agents without having to know how to code a program. We're going to move into a different place really soon. I was invited by George Poel, who is a senior fellow at the Schumacher Institute, and Jerry, I know you're in the same group right now. And George is doing a really high level, boil the oceans kind of thing to bring people, connect people. And he actually connected me with an international group that's headquartered in the UK on building food hubs, community-based food systems. So we are now in conversation with this group where George is going to raise money for us, or is assisting us in raising money, so we can create a project that integrates AI with this group. But at the same time, now I'm having to explain it's not so much about integrating AI as it is about figuring out how you enter wholesale markets and use AI to do it better, and to enter carbon markets where you can get paid for ecosystem services, and we're using AI to manage that process. So I may come back really fast, Pete, because to integrate data banks, with AI in order to have the AI do the diagnostics, but create data banks that actually can do this. Now, this is not, this is like walking my boat. And I know it needs to be done, but how to do it is a whole different trip. But the challenge really is, I've been working with I still am with NGOs, the Sarah Club and Citizen Climate Lobby and all. It's really difficult to do anything there that actually has an impact. You need to get into the industry. You need to get Pepsi and Nestle and Kellogg engaged here. And we need to figure out how to connect smaller and medium-sized farmers so they can competently participate in a market that they have been shut out of at this point. So that is my mission, is to create the aggregation systems, the logistics, contract farming ideas, so that you can have multiple smaller farmers partner in co-op style and engage. That's my dream, right? It's murder to explain this, particularly to nonprofit groups who are so idealistic about so many things, but really have a hard time grasping the mechanics of what you really need to do here and sort of hardcore working this. So here's the conference that I'm attending. It's on the 14th of October. So it's actually a super interesting approach here, because what Kansas State is doing there is really knuckling down to what is AI actually, and what are we going to do with this thing, and bring practitioners into the field.
Klaus, thank you very much. I don't know if it's helpful to you, but there's a thought in my brain: the hidden war on small farms, which lists things. When I read, God, what book was it about seed cleaners? Basically, there's a bunch of guys who with trailers that clean seeds, and they troop around the country. And when you've pulled your crop in, when you've harvested, you want to save some of your crop and clean the seeds so that you can store them. If they still have their husks on them, they rot.
Yeah.
Seed cleaners, exactly. And Monsanto has sued the seed cleaners, trying to get them out of existence so that everybody will buy new seed every year from Monsanto / Bayer / whoever, the monopoly, basically, or not quite monopoly on agricultural products. And that's just what, and then if you're a small farmer and you turn over to the futures markets and the investors that are busy trying to like slice and dice all the profit out of your ability to sell your crop, and the weather, and it's like, oh my God, the weather's like not an active participant, it's just mean. But it's really, really, really hard to be a small farmer. And Klaus, anything you can do to build scaffolding systems and things like that to help them thrive, hurrah to you, because it's super hard. And we wonder why people don't want to inherit the family farm.
Yeah, this seed cleaner thing went all the way to the Supreme Court. There was one farmer, and everybody rallied around this one farmer who got sued by Monsanto because his neighbor used GMO crops, and his seed drifted into onto his farm and planted into his seeds. And Monsanto sued him. They systematically sent out lawyers throughout the country, to sue farmers because they may have had traces of their GMO content in their seeds, and knocked them out of business. We are really not nice people. I mean,
There's some nasty stuff happening out there. Stacy, please.
We're really not nice people. That just, I don't know.
It's hard.
That feels
Yeah.
terrible. But because Grace isn't here and because I have firsthand knowledge, I just want to add that it wasn't just the all talk. It was how some of the talk was. So when Grace left here, she left here and formed an all women group. And she made it very clear that the pushback that she got from a dissenting voice, and Alex, you may appreciate this, was nothing like the pushback that you seem to experience. It was totally different. So in her perspective, and I viewed it, so I understand where she's coming from. It felt a lot more like she had to defend her dissenting views than it may have if she looked more like you. So it's not necessarily the same we that's in this space at the moment, but the we that was here at the time that she was here was a little bit different. And I can understand why she felt it wasn't worth it to keep pushing back. So I wanted to add that because it shouldn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, thank you. I was puzzled because she seemed to leave right after something I said. And I just want to relate what it was from my perspective, because it was a form of pushback, but I don't think it was, and I might be wrong. I had caught COVID on a trip to Spain and came back, and I had been vaccinated, and I told everybody, yeah, I just came down with COVID. And Grace said, oh, didn't catching COVID destroy your mental model about the vaccine? Or I'm paraphrasing her, but didn't it shatter your worldview about the vaccine? And I said, no, not remotely. Taking the vaccine, I did not think that taking the vaccine gave me an invulnerability shield from catching COVID. I knew it was very contagious. I knew it would greatly lessen my likelihood of dying or getting long COVID or something terrible. And I was perfectly comfortable with that. And that's the last I heard of her.
I would just say it wasn't one comment and one time.
Okay.
So,
but that kind of worried me. I was really interested in that conversation because her mental model and mine were obviously different on vaccines and COVID. And I was like, oh, let's dive. And that didn't happen. So thank you for telling us what went on. I just looked up and we're like at the end of our call time. Alex, thoughts?
Sorry, I was going to relate a story to do with Monsanto type big pharma, but I don't have to. We can keep it for another time.
There are so many of them.
Vaccines, and that triggered me. So
yeah. There's actually a thought in my brain. I got so angry about this that there's a thought in my brain, which I'll put a link to right now, titled Monsanto has eviscerated farming worldwide, maybe destroying agriculture. And I think the people who go to work there think they're like making farming better. And I'm like, I don't understand how you can think that. The policies, the things they've done, the people they've sued, the effects they've had on the world, I don't get it. And then I don't know enough to be like sure about this, but they just make me angry. And then Bayer bought them, and I'm like, Bayer, what are you doing? So now I don't like Bayer because they had the poor judgment to do that. I should probably have a nice conversation with somebody from one of those companies someday. Anyway, any concluding thought? Doug, did you want to?
you're muted.
You're muted. You put your hand down, but you didn't unmute.
I just wanted to stir in around the time that Grace left, this question had arisen, and I actually reached out to her, and I reached out to a couple of other women at that time that had been in and out of here. And one piece of it was sort of, getting exhausted by the patriarchal metaphoric jousting of whose is bigger, whose is better. But another dimension of it was that in that jousting, it gets boring. Like the share, the collective share was, it just sort of loses interest after a while. And they were looking for something that had more vitality and momentum and sort of substantive, energetic leveling up. And I think there's the dominance of the masculine, the dominance of the fire and air stuff, the intellect and the passion, versus the divine feminine stuff, which is nurturance and holding and receiving and growing stuff. And they all sort of basically said, I want to go someplace where I feel like I'm growing something. So I share that just for data input purposes.
Doug, thank you for sharing that a lot. That also seems like a really good place to wrap this call, and I'm hoping Ken has a poem for us. But Doug, thank you.
I do indeed have a poem. Taking a beat. I've been part of the OGM community since the 10 years. It's a community where I've felt well met, appreciated, stimulated, respected, and cared for. My hope is that I've contributed something of value to y'all. Perhaps my Plex posts, my stories, and my presence on the calls have provoked some deep thinking for some of you. Hopefully, I've not offended too many, too much, or too often. I so appreciate being able to read poetry to y'all. That means the world for me. Thanks so much. Now, methinks a pause is in order. It's time for me to take a break and unplug from OGM's deluge of information. In addition to downsizing and packing up my household goods, which is as big an elephant as I've ever had to eat, I feel that I need to be quiet for a while, to sit with some really big and really tough questions. Questions that resonate across time and through multiple domains and dimensions. Questions that require serious stillness, serious listening, and serious pondering. Questions that, if I can answer them, will help me to decide what to do next, where to place my time, my energy, and my attention to be effective with the rest of my life. The times are calling for something different than what I've been doing. I do not know if I have that something within me or not. But I do know the only way to find out is to still myself for a while. I need to tune out of the constant distractions. I need to move away from the need to keep up with the latest news and trends. I need to tune into the rhythms of my cells, to listen to how they're responding to the calls of the greater than human world. I need to listen to the voices of my ancestors, both those who came before and those who will come after, because I know they have things to say that I need to be aware of and to consider before making any further moves beyond what is already in progress. I need unfettered access to the slow rhythms of biological analog reality. I need, in the words of Pablo Neruda, a huge silence that might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and threatening each other with death. So I hope you'll pardon me while I go quiet for a bit. And until we meet again, I'll leave you with Neruda's brilliant poem, Keeping Quiet. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still for once on the face of the earth. Let us not speak in any language. Let us stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without energies. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it's about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I will count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I think, I don't know how, but Ken just encapsulated so much so beautifully.
I'll just say, I think he just said what I wanted to say to him. Just picking up on the energy kind of progressively of what I was seeing from him. I feel like what he just said is like put into words better than I could have what I actually wanted to say to him. So
Oh,
I
that's wonderful.
see it as a very positive thing.
Love that. Love that. Hey, thank you all. I think we kind of have our work cut out for us next Thursday. Should you care to be here, I'll be here. And let's be careful out there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.